Welcome to World True Crime, where we uncover the most chilling cases and untangle the mysteries that defy belief. From shocking betrayals to relentless manhunts, we bring you stories of crime, justice, and the human spirit. Peter Chadwick, born in England to an affluent family, lived a comfortable and privileged life. His father, a successful real estate investor who enjoyed a multi-million-dollar income, provided Peter with the best education from an early age. He attended prestigious schools and received a solid academic foundation. When Peter reached his teenage years, his family relocated to the United States of America, settling in the state of Pennsylvania. He attended high school in Bryn Mawr. After high school, Peter pursued higher education at Arizona State University. During this period, he met Chu Lim, known to most as QC. QC came from a Malaysian family with vast wealth and connections. She was the younger sister of a prominent businesswoman who owned the largest latex glove manufacturer in the country. Despite their opposite personalities, Peter and QC hit it off instantly. While Peter was reserved and socially awkward, QC was known for her outgoing nature and quick wit. Their differences initially attracted them to each other, and they continued to date through their college years. Peter's acquaintances described him as being notoriously difficult to get to know. On the other hand, QC was known for her charismatic and engaging personality. She was the life of the party and always made people around her laugh. Her intelligence, combined with her infectious charm, made her a magnetic force within her social circles. Eventually, Peter and QC tied the knot and settled in Newport Beach, California. This picturesque location was home to millionaires whose lavish mansions lined the streets. Peter and QC fit right in, driving luxury cars and wearing designer clothes. They lived in the lap of luxury, surrounded by others who shared a similar lifestyle. While Peter managed his father's properties, he remained home a lot. QC stayed at home and cared for the house and their growing family. Being a dedicated and driven parent, QC ensured that her 3 sons had the best life had to offer. She believed in the importance of a well-rounded education and pushed them to study hard and achieve high grades. Additionally, she encouraged them to participate in extracurricular activities and sports, teaching them the value of teamwork and physical fitness. QC wanted her sons to have a global perspective. By exposing them to different cultures and languages, she hoped that they would develop a broader understanding of the world. She believed in the value of travel and often took her sons on trips to broaden their horizons. From visiting ancient ruins to experiencing different cultures, QC believed that travel was a valuable learning experience that would shape her sons into well-rounded young men. Despite their wealth and success, the Chadwick family remained private and low-key. They preferred to keep to themselves, focusing on their family and close-knit relationships. However, everyone knew QC and Peter, and they were often seen picking up their sons from the bus stop at the end of the day. On Wednesday, October 10, 2012, on a bright and sunny 70-degree day in California, QC and Peter's 2 youngest sons got off the school bus expecting to see one of their parents. However, neither parent was at the bus stop. One of QC and Peter's neighbors witnessed the boys standing alone at the bus stop past 4 p.m., knowing right away that something was wrong. She realized it was unlike either QC or Peter to leave their children stranded. The neighbor picked up the boys and drove them home. However, when she got to the door, there was no answer. Although Peter's car was not in the driveway, QC's car was present. Upon arriving at the Chadwick residence, the neighbor noticed several packages on the doorstep, indicating that no one had been home all day. Since QC was a stay-at-home parent and Peter worked from home, someone should have been present to collect the deliveries. However, no one seemed to be home. The neighbor became increasingly worried and decided to take action. She brought QC and Peter's youngest sons back to her home, where she notified the police to request a welfare check on the Chadwick residence. The officers investigating the disappearance of QC and Peter Chadwick arrived at the Chadwick home in Newport Beach. Upon their arrival, they thoroughly examined the outside of the residence and noticed there were no signs of forced entry. After gaining entry, the officers found themselves in the living room, which appeared meticulously clean. The carpet was adorned with very distinct vacuum lines, indicating it had been recently vacuumed. As the officers walked around the house, they saw that it showcased family photos depicting what appeared to be a typical happy family. Moving on to the kitchen, the officers noticed a meal being prepared but left unfinished. It was as if the person making the meal had vanished into thin air. The utensils and ingredients were scattered, indicating that the dish had been interrupted abruptly. After finding no leads downstairs, the detectives proceeded to climb the stairs of the Chadwick residence. Upon entering the bedroom of QC and Peter, the officers discovered signs of violence. The bathroom floor rug was bunched in the corner of the room. There was a broken vase on the edge of the tub, and blood was evident. This discovery prompted the officers to declare the home a crime scene and promptly call for backup. As crime scene investigators arrived at the Chadwick residence, they immediately noticed that a safe in QC and Peter's bedroom had been opened, and its contents were missing. This discovery led the detectives to believe that money and important documents were potentially stolen. The empty safe further intensified their suspicion regarding the couple's whereabouts. Without concrete leads, detectives contacted various institutions, including hospitals, jails, and the coroner's office. They conducted a thorough search to see if anyone matching the couple's description had been admitted or taken into custody. However, their efforts yielded no results, raising even more concerns about the fate of QC and Peter. On October 11, 2012, the San Diego Police Department received a distressing phone call from Peter Chadwick. He claimed he was calling from an Arco gas station approximately 100 miles from the Chadwick residence in Newport Beach. In the call, Peter exhibited erratic behavior and rambled incoherently. According to Peter, on October 10, he hired a man named Juan to give an estimate on a painting job in his home. Peter stated that he had come across Juan while checking out an apartment complex he managed. As Juan went upstairs to assess the walls for future painting work, Peter remained downstairs working on his computer. While engrossed in his work, Peter suddenly heard his wife QC shout his name from the upstairs master bedroom. Instinctively, he rushed upstairs to find Juan strangling QC in the bathtub while also holding her underwater. Panicked and terrified, Peter attempted to intervene, but Juan pulled out a Swiss Army knife and kept him at bay, continuing the assault on QC. Peter stated that an altercation between him and Juan ensued, but QC was already dead by the time. He mentioned this after QC died. Peter claimed that Juan coerced him into wrapping the body in a green comforter, and then both of them carried QC's body into the back of Peter's Lexus. He alleged that Juan forced him to drive around Southern California with QC's body in the back seat. According to Peter, he was pulled over by a patrol officer with the California Highway Patrol, but the patrol officer let him go. Peter said he drove with Juan and QC's body for about 4 miles away from the Mexican border to an Arco gas station. At this gas station, Juan contacted his friend referred to as Chi. When Chi arrived, they transported QC's body into a van and fled the scene, leaving Peter behind at the gas station. While on the phone with a dispatcher, Peter stated that he believed Juan and Chi were heading in the direction of Mexico, where they planned to dismember and dispose of QC's body. Police officers met Peter Chadwick at the Arco station and brought him into the police department for an interview. During the interview, the detectives investigating QC's disappearance noted several concerning details. Firstly, Peter was covered in scratches all over his body, suggesting an altercation had taken place. Additionally, the detectives observed a human bite mark on Peter's forearm, which further raised suspicions. When questioned about the alleged events surrounding his wife's disappearance, Peter displayed no emotion. This unusual lack of emotion contributed to the detective's suspicion. Furthermore, Peter demonstrated no concern for his children throughout the interview. He did not ask about them or express concern for their safety or well-being, which was yet another red flag for the detectives. With Peter in custody, the detectives returned to the Chadwick home to continue their investigation. Upon their return, they noticed that the walls had recently been painted. This discovery puzzled the detectives as it contradicted Peter's claim that he had recently recruited Juan for a painting estimate. Why would he have hired someone to perform a paint estimation if the house had recently been painted? This inconsistency raised further doubts about Peter's story and led them to continue their search for evidence to corroborate his claims. The Chadwick family lived in a gated community with a manned guard shack with video surveillance, which provided detectives with valuable footage. On the footage from October 10 at 1:30 p.m., the detectives saw Peter Chadwick's SUV leaving the premises. However, they could not determine if either Juan or QC's body was also inside the car. Further investigation revealed additional video footage of Peter's vehicle going through a toll booth on a freeway. The footage suggested that there was only one person inside the car. This discrepancy with Peter's original story raised suspicion among the detectives. The detectives then spoke to the California Highway Patrol officer who pulled over Peter Chadwick on October 10. This officer confirmed that Peter was the only person inside the vehicle. In addition to the video footage, detectives discovered a handwritten letter by QC highlighting Peter's disturbing Google searches she had come across. One of the searches mentioned in the letter was how to torture. When the detectives reviewed the medical records of QC, they discovered that she had been recently diagnosed with sexually transmitted diseases. It was later discovered that Peter was engaging in affairs and was failing to use protection. Consequently, he brought the diseases home to QC. Several of QC's close friends came forward with information during their investigation. QC's friends revealed that although QC had mentioned the idea of divorce to them, Peter was resistant. According to QC's friends, Peter would never agree to a divorce as it would threaten his financial stability. QC had access to a significant amount of money, and in the event of divorce, Peter would lose access to this wealth. On October 11, 2012, Peter was arrested and charged with the murder of his wife. He pleaded not guilty to the charges, maintaining his innocence throughout the court proceedings. Peter's attorney contacted detectives 1 week after Peter's arrest. The attorney informed the detectives that Peter was willing to provide the location of QC's body. Peter claimed the location was in South San Diego, specifically Wildcat Canyon. Wildcat Canyon is a mountainside area off the beaten path. Additionally, Peter stated that the body could be found in a dumpster in the area. Upon receiving this information, the crime scene investigators promptly headed to the specific location. Upon reaching Wildcat Canyon, they focused on the dumpster Peter had described. Inside the dumpster, they discovered several items belonging to QC. They found her purse, identification card, and significant cash totaling $20,000. Furthermore, the investigators spotted a green comforter in the dumpster. Upon closer examination, they discovered that it contained arms and legs, leading them to believe that it was part of QC's body. The discovery was disheartening as it indicated that the detectives had indeed found QC's remains. At the medical examiner's office, an autopsy was performed on the body, confirming it to be QC. It revealed that the cause of death was strangulation. Peter Chadwick, despite being charged with the heinous crime of murder, was granted $1 million bail by the judge. This decision was made because Peter had no criminal history and ties to the state due to having 3 sons. The conditions imposed on his parole included surrendering his passport, ensuring that he could not leave the country, and prohibiting him from having any contact with QC's family. While Peter was out of jail on bond, he lived with his father in Santa Barbara. During this time, he diligently attended all of his court hearings and made an effort to spend quality time with his 3 sons. However, the truth behind his actions was that he was planning to escape. Unbeknownst to the detectives, Peter had emptied his safe deposit box and made several cash advances on his credit cards. When it was discovered that Peter had gone missing, a massive search began to locate him. Due to Peter's wealth, the detectives encountered difficulties in locating him. They eventually sought assistance from the U.S. Marshals, hoping their resources and expertise would help them find Peter. After analyzing footage from the airport, the detectives discovered that Peter had taken a cab to Santa Barbara Airport. Upon Peter's arrival, he sat in the airport for a short time before leaving again. The detectives were able to obtain footage of the cab that picked up Peter and transported him to an unknown destination. To gain further insights into Peter's whereabouts, the detectives conducted a thorough search of his home in Santa Barbara. During this search, they discovered a significant amount of literature and DVDs related to Canada. Additionally, they found books on how to live life on the run. After analyzing the evidence, the detectives concluded that Peter was likely on his way to the Washington border with the intention of entering Canada. The detectives' suspicions were further fueled by statements obtained from Peter's sons. They revealed that their father had informed them of his plans to go on the run. Peter had shared his intention to walk across the Canadian border and find a menial job to save money, with the ultimate goal of reuniting with his sons. For 3 years, the U.S. Marshals followed up on leads that Peter was spotted in Canada, but their efforts hit dead end after dead end. The hunt for Peter Chadwick, who was wanted for fleeing justice, had spanned several years involving dozens of officers and numerous leads. However, the case remained unsolved, and the search seemed futile. In August 2018, the detectives decided to renew their interest in Peter Chadwick's case. They believed a more aggressive approach was needed to bring him to justice. As a result, a detective approached the Public Information Office at their department and discussed the potential of reintroducing the case on a global scale. After careful consideration, the detective and the public information officer agreed that a renewed push was necessary. The officers believed Peter Chadwick could have fled anywhere, making it crucial to spread the story far and wide. Given the popularity of podcasts in 2018, the detective and the public information officer thought a podcast on the case could effectively attract new leads and raise awareness. They named the podcast Countdown to Capture, and the first episode aired in September 2018. The podcast immediately sparked a surge of interest in the Chadwick case. Tips flooded the tip line from around the world, including locations as far away as Ukraine and Japan. People claimed to have seen Peter Chadwick in various places, providing valuable information to the detectives. To further assist in the efforts to track Peter Chadwick, the U.S. Marshals placed him on their 15 most wanted list and offered a $100,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. This reward increased awareness and provided an incentive for individuals to come forward with any information they held. During the final episode of the podcast Countdown to Capture, the lead detective left a direct message for his target. The detective made it clear that it was time for Peter to put an end to this case, urging him to consider the impact of his actions on his sons. In a stern tone, the detective warned Peter that the police would soon be closing in on him. As the search for Peter continued, the detectives and U.S. Marshals learned that Peter did not head towards Canada when he fled justice years earlier but instead to Mexico. They discovered that Peter was hiding in Pátzcuaro, a city that proved ideal for him to blend in and go unnoticed. Pátzcuaro is a charming town located in the state of Michoacán, Mexico. It is known for its traditional colonial architecture with brightly painted buildings and cobblestone streets. The city is known for its colorful markets and traditional handicrafts such as ceramics, textiles, and woodwork. Peter checked into a cheap hotel using the name Paul Cook and introduced himself as a relative of those who disappeared on the Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. This clever tactic allowed him to gain the trust of the locals and maintain a low profile. During his time in Pátzcuaro, Peter sought the assistance of a local realtor to help him find an apartment. However, the realtor later described him as strange and without a soul. Despite his peculiar behavior, Peter managed to establish a connection with a woman named Claudia Sato. The two began spending time together, and their friendship grew stronger. In May 2016, Peter, Claudia, and Claudia's sister embarked on a trip to a concert. Claudia's sister noticed Peter driving erratically during the journey and asked him to slow down. Instead of complying, Peter continued his reckless driving, leading to an accident. Claudia Sato was killed in the accident, while her sister sustained serious injuries and was in a coma for 15 days. Meanwhile, Peter walked away with a limp. After the tragic accident that resulted in the death of Claudia and the severe injuries of her sister, the district attorney's office contacted the Sato family and asked them to sign a document granting Paul Cook immunity in Claudia's death. The document absolved Paul Cook of all wrongdoing and portrayed him as a good person who was not involved in the incident. Faced with the immense distress caused by Claudia's death and the suffering of her sister, the family agreed to sign the papers without asking questions. However, after settling the initial shock and grief, they realized they had made a huge mistake. Unfortunately, by then it was too late. Peter Chadwick, the main suspect in the case, had fled once again. As the search continued, the U.S. Marshals learned of Peter's presence in Valle de Bravo. Valle de Bravo is a small and charming town in the Mexican state of Puebla. It is known for its picturesque scenery, crystal-clear lakes, and lush forests. Peter became frightened after seeing an investigation report broadcast about him. 2 hours later, when his iPad stopped working, he was convinced that the marshals had found his location. As a result, Peter hastily left town and headed to Cholula. Cholula is considered one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, with a history that dates back thousands of years. It is known for its rich history, cultural heritage, and the famous Cholula hot sauce named after the town. The town is known for its traditional music and dance, which often includes colorful costumes and lively performances. In August 2019, the detectives received a tip that assisted the U.S. Marshals in zeroing in on Peter's location. Within 24 hours, they found Peter and promptly arrested him. He was then extradited to the U.S. to face charges for the murder of his wife. Peter pleaded guilty to the charge, admitting his guilt. The judge presiding over the case sentenced Peter to 15 years to life, reflecting the severity of his actions. Thank you for joining us on World True Crime. Remember, the truth is always stranger than fiction. Stay safe, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.